The Connection Show. Inspiring. Hope. Health. Healing. Sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops. Live with Jill Reynolds. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our page. Share it. Subscribe to it now and click the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming shows.
The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me tonight is Janeen Olmos. Welcome to the show, Janeen.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'd like the audience to know a little bit about you, so I'm going to read your shortened bio to them. Janeen is a therapist, coach, and a consultant for professionals seeking to improve self-care, personal growth, and fulfillment. She is uniquely qualified to help others as she has spent 15 years in the corporate environment and is now a licensed mental health and addiction therapist, a certified resilience coach, and has been involved in her own self-care and mental health journey for decades. She has helped teens and adults revitalize joy, energy, and a sense of authentic resonance in life, work, and their relationships. Her passion is helping women overcome personal and professional obstacles to reconnect with themselves, deepen relationships, and revive ambition through intensive retreats and individual and group coaching. She is also a coach that transforms organizations struggling with burnout and employee turnover. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'd love for the audience to know a little bit more about you. So on this show, Janeen, what we love to do is we really truly believe that connecting the dots of your story on the Connection Show in hope, health, and healing back to that of your childhood, the good, the bad, and the ugly, helps people that hears your story to transform their lives. So if you're willing to be vulnerable and authentic, would you mind going back to little Janeen and sharing a little bit about what your life was like growing up and the struggles and pains that you've gone through that helped transform you into who you are today?
Well, I welcome the opportunity to do this because I don't always get the opportunity to go back that far. So I appreciate you knowing that childhood can somehow, we don't always get out of childhood alive, as some people say. So my journey started on my dad's dairy farm in a small town in Missouri. And as you could probably guess, my parents are an older generation. And so their work ethic was very strong. And so because it was a dairy farm, we had to operate that farm 24/7. So emotions, except for anger, were not easily expressed. And they're from a generation where they didn't express love very openly. So as you can imagine, that kind of left me on my own for affection. I did get affection from my siblings and my parents, but it wasn't enough, honestly. Not trying to blame them, but that's just the way it was. And so that left me vulnerable to getting in a relationship with a coach of mine when I was 16 years old. And I didn't find out that that was sexual abuse until I was in my 30s, when I had entered addiction treatment for sex addiction. Mm-hmm. I had gotten married at age 21, so I was pretty young. And I'd had a few affairs in my marriage, which I am horrified by. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how the trauma was working in my life. I didn't know that, trauma makes you do things that you would never normally do. And it makes you do things against your values. Like, that wasn't who I wanted to be. But I felt so compulsive to do it. I just couldn't stop. So I went to addiction treatment for 60 days. And honestly, it saved my life. I would not trade that for anything.
Where did you go to
Uh,
treatment, Janeen?
Um, it was a place called Keystone Extended Care Unit in Chester, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I had some great therapists there who were trained by the grandfather of sex addiction, Patrick Carnes.
Good old Patrick Carnes. I met him in 1985.
Did? Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Wow. I hadn't met anybody who'd met him. So that's wonderful. They saved my life. I learned more in those 60 days than I had in the 30 some years before then. So it was a real gift.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about the dysfunction in my family, that I was emotionally neglected, and I was sexually abused by the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no clue all that was going on for me. And my mom so my parents found out about my relationship with the coach, and they ended up getting him banned from teaching. And my mom tried to take me to therapy, but I resisted.
And how old, at that time you were 16 when she tried to, or 17 when she tried to take you to therapy?
I was 18 by that time.
Yeah, see, that's what's difficult with a lot of parents don't realize is if you can get them into therapy before 18, it's not their choice, it's your choice. But after 18, you're pretty much powerless. It's up to the child. And I shouldn't even call him a child, because at 18 you're an adult.
Well, kind of, right? So age-wise, you're an adult, but emotionally wise, there's a lot of 18-year-old. I was not emotionally mature by any means. So
then you went to treatment, and then what took place in your life after that then?
So we ended up, my husband was very angry, rightfully so. I hurt him deeply, in probably the most profound way you can hurt a husband. And so we ended up not being able to reconcile. We just couldn't find the right therapist for us. And so we ended up getting divorced. And I had been the primary caretaker for my kids before I went to treatment. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, which was difficult because work was my identity also. I had quit my job to stay home, and that was a 180 for me. I didn't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest reason I had emotional affairs was because I didn't know how to do emotional intimacy. And for me to stay home with my kids, that was emotionally intimate. So that's kind of when my behavior escalated, because I didn't know who I was anymore after not having work to identify myself with. So I came home, started worked my treatment hard for a couple years, started some sex addiction groups for women here in the city, and got divorced. It was very painful because the judge, even with a psych eval, and my therapist and other therapists confirming that my kids would have troubles with their dad when they were in their teens, which they both did. And they both ended up moving in with me once they turned 18. So that was difficult to not be in their lives very much. And their dad kind of alienated me because he was still angry. So it took about 10 years for their dad and I to get along. And then I worked my program really hard, didn't date for the first 2 years after treatment because I never wanted to go back to that behavior again. Ever.
Plus, you were told that you could date after you could keep a pet or a plant alive. If you can keep a pet or a plant alive for 2 years, then you can date.
I wasn't very good at the plant thing. That's my dad's thing. I had to take care of the baby cows, so I was pretty good at pets, so I could do the pet thing. But I was really dedicated to my recovery. I just didn't want to feel that shame again. That was intense shame and just mortification and disgust with myself. I never wanted to go back to that. So I was really, I made a list of things I wanted in a new partner. And if they didn't have it, I would talk to my sponsor, I would talk to my peers and say, hey, is this right? And I knew it wasn't right. So, luckily I found my current husband about 3 years after treatment. Mm-hmm. And it's been a good upgrade.
A good upgrade. And you'll never say there's no problems because then you'd be in denial, but it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a lot different. It's so much healthier.
Yeah. So now I see that you've become a licensed mental health and addictions therapist, a certified resilient coach, and a consultant. So how did that transpire after going through your own recovery? Where did that come into play?
So after I came back from recovery, I was in the corporate world. I was in communication, telecommunication, which is a big industry here in the city. And so I was pretty happy doing that for a while, for a long time. I was a trainer. I got to travel a lot. I had a lot of fun with the people, the vendors I managed and all that kind of thing. And then I got to a department where I was micromanaged. And as addicts, we have authority issues. So I didn't do well in that environment. And I'm like, something's got to change. And I was starting to get dissatisfied with the corporate atmosphere. It just wasn't emotionally fulfilling. I wanted to talk about my feelings a lot after recovery. So I went back to school, went back to grad school and decided to get my degree and pay it forward because I was so grateful to my therapist. I wanted to be able to give that gift to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, no, so then you went back to school and I'm sure it took a while to get through all of your classes and stuff. And so
Yeah.
then did you go into private practice or which direction did you go from there after you got your degree?
So after my degree, during my internship, the last year of college, it only took 2 years for my degree, which was pretty quick. And I worked at a place called Kids TLC here in the city. And it's a residential outpatient autism treatment center for teens and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did my internship there, and that was an eye-opening experience working in residential with teens. I had never done that before, but I had a passion for residential or inpatient treatment because that's where I was, right? I wanted to really go back into that atmosphere and serve in that way. And so I did that for 5 years after graduation. I was the substance abuse therapist there. And I worked with all the kids and helped them not do drugs, which is a challenge for teens because, they're fine. Nothing's going to hurt them. And then some things happened in that treatment center, and it was just time for me to go. I was getting pretty burned out. Usually after about 5-7 years, a lot of people get burned out in residential for kids. Mm-hmm. So I went to go work with a company nearby here who actually works with impaired physicians, which I didn't know about. I had no idea that industry even existed. And so and I learned so much there on how to actually move clients forward in therapy because those doctors and nurses and lawyers and IT professionals, anyone I worked with in that facility, they really wanted to get back to work. But in order to get back to work, they really had to show that they were in a really healthy place, mentally and emotionally. Mm-hmm. So luckily, my boss there, she taught me how to move them forward and get them ready to go back into the workplace. And so it was a really fulfilling job. It just was draining on me with the schedule, and it didn't match my family life. So I left that after 2 years, and then I went back to doing outpatient at Kids TLC, which is what I do currently.
Okay, so you're working with the teens again.
Yeah, in outpatient.
Yeah, and then so where does the certified resilience coach and consulting come in?
So while I was working with the physicians in that position I was in, I had heard about coaching. My boss kept talking about coaching. I'm like, what is this coaching thing? I'd never heard of it. I didn't really know what it was. And she spoke highly of it. And then I was going through burnout at the time, some heavy burnout. And I found my own coach. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to learn about this coaching thing, I'm going to hire my own coach who was a former social worker. And so I thought that was a really great match. So she taught me about coaching and she helped me get out of burnout. And she also asked me, have you ever thought about going into the coaching world? So that's what started my journey into the coaching world. And so I learned about the resilience coaching certification that I could get. And so I went through and got that. And so I've been trying to figure out for the last couple of years what I wanted to do with my coaching. Like, how do I integrate it with mental health? Because I love working with clients, but it can be draining working with trauma a lot, which is what I do. I work with trauma a lot. And I wanted to figure out a way that I could still help people, but not go so much into the past, which is what I love about coaching is you touch on the past and you connect it to the present, but you don't focus on it so much like you do in therapy. So I've been trying to develop, and I've just now figured out in December kind of where I wanted to go with that, which is helping women recover from whatever obstacles they have in their lives and moving forward to a place of really solid, not only self-care, but self-love, and self-respect.
And so how are the children now, your kids now, and are they still with you? Are they on their own now? Your children?
So I have two families kind of. I've got two older kids in their 20s and I've got a 13-year-old. So the 13-year-old is still with me, my husband. And my daughter's on her own living with her boyfriend in Omaha, and my son is currently living with us, and he's struggling. He's having a hard time, because he was kind of the lost child during the divorce and all that kind of stuff. And so his emotional needs were not taken care of. So now we're kind of in a place where we need to help him a little bit. And luckily he's motivated to get some help and break those patterns that are just holding him back.
Yeah. It's hard when the kids, struggle and you sit there and you're the therapist, so you can only play that therapy role for so long. I had a very wise therapist that she had a whiteboard in her room, and she really helped me to get through some of that transition from childhood to adulthood with kids. And she put on the board the P and the C, and P in one corner, C on the bottom, and then the A and the A. And she said, when your children are from birth to 18, you need to be in a parent-child relationship with them. But as soon as they turn 18, you as a parent have to learn how to adjust and change the relationship to that of an adult to an adult, not an adult to a best friend, but an adult to an adult relationship. And that was a eye opener for me, Janeen, because my son had gone off to college, and when he graduated college, I don't remember, it was 22, 23 years old, and he called and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm graduating. Can I come home?" And I said, "Well, honey, first off, when you left at 18, where you went to was your home. So if you'd like to come back and stay with me and Larry, my husband, you're welcome to come and stay with us for 90 days. And he said, 90 days? I said, yeah, honey. I said, you've been gone for 4.5 years, and so I'll give you 90 days to come and stay with us at our home. And I had to change the wording to his home to our home. And it was really hard for me as a mom to do that because, us mothers want to, we want to coddle our young adults, even though. So I did that, and it was really kind of cool because what I did is in those 4.5 years when he was at college, I had given him a credit card and paid all of his expenses. And when he got out of school, his credit score was like 820. So when he got out of school, I had boundaries that he had to get up at 7 in the morning. And he had to put on a suit. I got him some new suits and sit at the kitchen table, apply for a job, and he had to have a job within a week. So he did. He got his job in a week. And then I put a spreadsheet together on a budget and showed him what his expenditures had been for 4.5 years at school. Like, this is what your cell phone is, this is your car payment, gasoline, food. So by 90 days, he had his whole budget put together, and then he knew how much money of his paycheck could go towards rent and utilities. And so he adjusted it well enough to know he needed 3 other roommates to move out. And so he did, and he thrived, and now he's 39 years old and making more money than I've ever made in my life. So I don't know how I figured all that out as a single, never married mom, but somehow it came together. And I think I remembered hearing about it Janine, when he was a kid growing up, I listened to Dr. James Dobson talk about how we as parents need to build a relationship with our children so at 18 we can let them flourish and fly like birds to their new life. And so I think that was hard. It was hard for me not to
Hmm.
just tell him to come back and me take care of him. And he even was kind of shocked. He's like, what? I get 90 days? That's it? I said, yep. I supported you all these years. I paid for your college. You're on your own. But every kid's different, I know. So, but that was just something I had learned that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think I needed you when my kids moved back in with me to set those really strong boundaries because, I do feel like I've done some enabling a little bit. It's like that constant push pull, like trying to push them towards adulthood, being independent and all that kind of stuff, but still trying to take care of them emotionally when I knew they hadn't. That's a really hard balance to find. So
But it's never
thank
too late, so I can help you if you'd like. So it's never too late, ever, ever, ever,
you.
ever, ever. And
I
and I think the hard part about it is because we're so worried. Oops, I think I froze. Oops.
I can still hear you.
Kenya, I know my picture froze, so I don't know what happened there. And maybe it'll come back, and I don't know if it will. So you can hear me, but I'm frozen in time. So if at any time you can't hear me, let me know. But I don't know why I'm frozen all of a sudden. So,
Technology.
yeah. Oh, well, let me do this. Let me point to your bio so people know how to reach out to you. So this is your bio. And so people to reach out to Janine, this is her website and her email address so you can connect with her. And I'm going to come back, and I'm really sorry, everyone, that I froze in time. So what I'd like to do at this point is just, Janine, is there any last words that you'd love to leave with the audience of words of encouragement? And then can they reach out to you for personal coaching? Can people do that, or do you? Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, they can definitely reach out to me. And I think the biggest thing I want to say is don't suffer in silence. If there's something going on in your life that you need help with, reach out to someone, get some help somewhere. It doesn't matter where, whether it's a coach, a therapist, a friend who will guide you towards professional help, get some professional help. There's no shame in that.
Mm. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And so we're going to end for now, but you can definitely stay connected with Janine. And thanks so much, Janine, for joining us today on the Connection Show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
It's a privilege. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Thanks again. Bye now.